Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling a big one. We're going on a journey into the history of experimental music.
Right. It's a genre that I think a lot of people find, a little intimidating. It gets tagged as difficult.
It does. But that's what we want to break down. Because when you get to its core, it's really just about exploration, right?
Exactly. It's the sound of creators asking, what if? It's really about the joy of just exploring sound itself.
That's the perfect way to frame it. So our mission today is to trace this entire 80-year path. We're going from the post-war era right up to AI.
And we've pulled together sources that map this out decade by decade. We're going to be focusing on the key artists and really critically, the technology, the gear that let them break all the rules.
So when we say experimental music, what's the working definition here?
Well, it's a constant attempt to explore the possibilities of sound. It's about intentionally moving away from harmony, melody, the things we take for granted.
So it's not one style.
Not at all. It's a process. It covers everything from John Cage to, the digital glitch artists we see today. It's always moving.
And to really understand that process, I think we have to start at a time when everything was broken down and being rebuilt. The 1940s and 50s. The atmosphere after World War II just seems so ripe for this kind of radical thinking.
It was. Composers looked at the traditions of classical music and just thought, we need a fresh start.
And this era, it gives us this amazing philosophical clash in how to experiment.
It really defines the whole decade. So in America, you have John Cage. His whole philosophy was about letting go.
Relinquishing control.
Exactly. His approach, which people call chance music, it questions the whole idea of the composer's intention. What's left when you take the ego out?
The world is left.
Yeah.
The environment. And you immediately think of his most famous, or maybe infamous, piece, 4 Foot 33.
From 1952.
Yeah, and it wasn't about silence at all. It was about framing the sounds already in the room. The coughs, the heating system, the traffic outside.
He was forcing you, the listener, to hear those things as the music, to hear sound as an experience, not just something a performer gives you.
And even before that, he was messing with the instruments themselves.
Oh, absolutely. The prepared piano in sonatas and interludes from 48, it's the perfect example of the era's tech. It wasn't about inventing a new instrument.
No, it was about radically changing an old one.
Right, shoving bolts, screws, rubber between the piano strings. He turned a melodic instrument into this strange personal percussion orchestra.
So that's the letting go side of the coin. But across the Atlantic in Europe, composers were aiming for the exact opposite.
Total control. This is where Pierre Schaeffer pioneers music concrete.
He was basically the world's first sampler, wasn't he?
In a way, yes. The whole idea was to record sounds from the real world, a train, a door slamming, whatever, and treat that recording as a musical note.
You take the sound out of its context.
And you manipulate it. His work, Cinq études de bruit, 5 studies of noise from 1948, is the landmark. It proved any sound could become composition.
So you have Cage saying, just listen to the world, and Schaeffer saying, I'm going to capture the world and bend it to my will.
And the tool that made all this possible?
The tape recorder.
The tape recorder. It let them cut, splice, reverse, layer sound. Sound engineering became composition. It led to these incredibly complex pieces, like Stockhausen's Gesang der Junglinge in 56.
Which blended electronic sounds and human voices.
All meticulously sliced up on tape. The tape machine was, without a doubt, the most important new instrument of that decade.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Oh.
So if tape let them manipulate existing sounds, the 60s is when they start generating brand new sounds from nothing.
That's the huge leap. This is when the technology finally starts to catch up with the ambition. And experimental music starts to connect with, the wider culture.
Minimalism, psychedelic rock, all that.
Exactly. But the source material is really clear. The critical development is the birth of modular synthesis.
And this is where the heavy hitters come in. The Moog modular, the Buchla, the EMS VCS3.
And we have to be clear about what these things were. They weren't like a modern keyboard you just play melodies on. They were labs for sound.
Right. Don Buchla famously refused to put a standard piano keyboard on his early synths.
He insisted. He wanted composers to use voltage control, touch plates, to think about sound in a new way, to sculpt it.
And that focus on texture and duration, it just perfectly fuels the rise of minimalism.
Of course. You get artists like Lamonti Young and his piece, The Well-Tuned Piano, which started in '64. It's all about these long, sustained, deeply resonant tones. It really demands your full attention.
And then there's Terry Riley's In C from 1968. It feels like it introduces a whole different idea about what a composition even is.
It's an instruction set, not a fixed score. It's modular, it's repetitive, and those ideas, repetition, process, long form, they influence electronic music to this day.
And we also see the synths finally escaping the academic labs.
Yes, they get into the hands of visionaries, like Morton Subotnick. His album Silver Apples of the Moon was actually commissioned by the record label specifically for the Buchla.
Which is amazing. And it's seen as the first electronic album made purely for home listening.
It is, and then the experiment breaks out completely. The band Silver Apples, on their self-titled album in '68, they're using homemade oscillators right next to drums and vocals.
Bringing that pure electronic sound into a rock context.
Yeah. The '60s really gave artists the hardware to make the philosophical ideas of the '40s and '50s a physical reality.
The '60s had this utopian, expansive feeling. But when we get to the 1970s, that vibe changes a lot.
Oh, it really does. The optimism kind of slams into a grittier post-punk reality, and the experiments get, well, deliberately abrasive.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Our sources point to this as the decade where noise becomes a conscious, intentional part of the music.
And that leads directly to the birth of industrial culture.
The tech gets a bit smaller, right? But the sound gets so much harsher.
Exactly. You still have these powerful synths like the EMS Synthi A and the ARP 2600. But the big shift is that artists start embracing the sound of failure.
What do you mean by failure?
Feedback loops, distortion, pushing the circuits until they break. They started prioritizing that sonic texture over, pretty melodies.
And that focus on transgression and texture leads us right to Throbbing Gristle.
You can't talk about this shift without them. Their 1977 release, the second annual report, is just confrontational. It's not about making pleasing sounds. It's about creating friction.
Both sonically and psychologically.
They completely embraced noise, performance art, found sounds. The act of making music became this radical, often very uncomfortable statement. Their track, Hamburger Lady.
From '78.
Yeah, it's based on a clinical report. And the sound is just unnerving, mechanical, post-human. It's the perfect encapsulation of what they were trying to do.
But the '70s also show just how wide this genre is, while Throbbing Gristle is making this abrasive sound.
On the other side of the spectrum, you've got Brian Eno.
With discrete music in '75, basically inventing modern ambient music.
He was using tape loops to create these long generative pieces that were, and this is key, designed to be part of the environment, to be ignored as much as listened to.
That contrast is everything.
Oh.
Overwhelm the listener with noise or give them infinite space.
And you see other things, too. The huge repetitive structures of Philip Glass's music in 12 parts and the German krautrock scene, a band like Faust on Faust IV, blending rock with totally abstract tape experiments.
So in the '70s, experimental music could be a weapon or it could be a refuge. Okay, so we've gone from the academic lab to these gritty urban performance spaces. As we move into the 1980s, the whole barrier to entry just seems to collapse.
It completely does. This is the era of home production, the democratization of sound.
And what piece of gear is powering this?
It's an inexpensive little box,
Yeah.
cassette MTR, the multi-track recorder, specifically the Tascam Porta Studio.
Suddenly you don't need a huge studio.
You don't need an engineer. You could be in your bedroom making the most extreme, demanding music imaginable with 4 tracks on a regular cassette tape. It just decentralized everything.
And this lets these local scenes just explode globally, like the noise scene in Japan.
Which became hugely influential. The sheer sonic intensity of an album like Merzbow's Metal Acoustic Music from 1981, it spread all over the world through this underground cassette trading network.
But it wasn't just lo-fi, was it?
Right.
The digital world starts to arrive.
Right. You get standardization. The Roland TR-808 drum machine, which was a commercial flop at first, becomes this vital tool for experimentalists.
The Yamaha DX7 synth?
The DX7, yeah. Its digital FM synthesis offered these clean but also really malleable sounds that seeped into the underground.
So as we roll into the 1990s, the bedroom studio goes from analog tape to the personal computer.
And that changes everything again. The PC, dedicated samplers like the Akai S3000, and powerful software like Max MSP, this is the dawn of digital experimentation.
And the philosophy shifts too, from manipulating tape to manipulating data.
That's the perfect way to put it. And this is where the glitch aesthetic really comes into its own.
So glitch is basically using digital errors on purpose.
Exactly. The sound of a skipping CD, a buffer overflow, digital crackle. You take those sounds of failure and corruption, and you treat them as your primary musical material. You make rhythms and textures out of them.
That's such a fascinating idea. The 70s celebrated analog noise, and the 90s celebrated the sound of the digital world breaking down.
And the quintessential glitch album has to be Oval's 94 Discount from 1995. The sounds were literally created by drawing on CDs, by physically damaging them to make them skip in interesting
And
ways.
this precise digital mindset just infects everything. IDM, ambient.
Oh, for sure. Think of the incredible textures on Aphex Twin's Selected Ambient Works Volume 2, or the almost mathematical precision of Ryoji Ikeda's work, like Plus Muddy Swan from 96. The error became a new kind of beauty.
We've come from preparing a piano with nuts and bolts to manipulating pure data. As we hit the 2000s, the computer moves from the studio desk and onto the stage.
Absolutely. The 2000s are defined by the laptop becoming a primary live instrument. You have software like Ableton Live and Super Collider that makes it possible.
And it globalizes the sound, right?
Instantly. Laptop electronica, field recording, noise, it's all portable now. You can create and perform anywhere.
The music from this time is just incredible. Fennis's album Endless Summer from 2001. It fuses this glitchy processed guitar with these warm, beautiful soundscapes. It blurs the line between noise and melody.
It really does. And artists like Ryoji Ike just double down on sonifying raw data with works like Dataplex. It's almost the sound of the information age itself.
Then, as we get into the 2010s, something interesting happens. There's a pushback, a return to physicality.
A huge one. The Eurorack modular synthesizer system has this massive revival. Artists wanted that hands-on, unpredictable feeling of patching cables and turning knobs again.
So you get this blend of digital precision and analog chaos.
It defined the decade. You have artists like Wenyo Trix Point never building these incredible sound collages from samples on albums like Replica.
And Tim Hecker creating these dense, overwhelming walls of textural drone on albums like Virgins.
They're using modular synths and digital processing together, building these really complex acoustic spaces.
Which brings us right up to the present day, the 2020s, and we're staring at the next great frontier, artificial intelligence.
Right. This changes the role of the artist from a composer to more of an architect.
How so?
Well, with AI tools like RV or Magenta Studio, your creative input becomes about defining the rules, the constraints, the algorithms. You're not necessarily writing the notes anymore.
Holly Herndon is the key figure here, right?
Yeah.
Her album Pierre Odero from 2019.
She's the pioneer. She used an AI that she trained on human voices to create this uncanny artificial vocal chorus. The AI itself is a collaborator.
But it's not the only path.
Not at all. And it's important to see the counterpoint. You have artists like Colleen Malone with an album like Living Torch who are using acoustic instruments to explore drone and microtonality in these deeply emotional ways.
Proving that the experiment is still about human feeling no matter what technology you're using. So what does this all mean? We've gone on an 80-year journey. We started with a musician shoving bolts inside a piano, and we've ended up with an AI generating a choir.
I think what stands out the most is the genre's absolute commitment to unpredictability, to the spirit of exploration. Experimental music is like a laboratory.
A research and development department.
That's a perfect analogy. The techniques that start there, tape loops, sampling, synth textures, digital distortion, even algorithmic composition, they eventually filter down into everything else. Pop, rock, film scores.
It's not an isolated world at all.
It's the engine room for the rest of the music world.
And now, standing here in the age of AI, that core question of intention just comes right back to the forefront. If a computer can generate the entire piece, what is the human's role?
And the sources suggest that the future with AI, with brainwave interfaces, with VR, could fundamentally change music from a product you consume into a personalized environment you inhabit.
It challenges the very idea that music needs a physical input.
Exactly.
And that leaves a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on. The first experimentalist asked, what happens if the musician doesn't touch the strings?
And now, the experiment is asking, what happens when the human doesn't touch the notes at all, but simply conceives of the sonic world? If music becomes purely a result of thought and algorithm, experimental music won't just be predicting the future, it'll be engineering the way we hear it. The experiment, it seems, just keeps going.